Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Mass MAGA podcast, episode 2, April 2025. We have a great special guest today by the name of Steve Semple. He's the chair of the Attleboro City Committee, and Steve is going to share some great insights as to the status of voter integrity in Massachusetts, opportunity for conservative candidates in the elections in November of 2025 and beyond. And then lastly, some great RTC, RCC growth strategies. So enjoy the interview, and thanks again, Steve Semple. Hi, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to our interview for this month with the Mass MAGA podcast. We have a great guest and a good friend by the name of Steve Semple. I'm going to let him give his background, but just very briefly, he's the chair of the Attleboro Republican City Committee. He's also the chief data analyst for the Mass GOP Election Integrity Committee and former executive vice chair of the Massachusetts Trump campaign in 2024. Steve and I worked very, very closely during that campaign, had a lot of fun and worked real hard. So, Steve, I'm going to just throw it to you just for a second or two. Um, Part of what we're trying to do with the Mass MAGA brand, if you will, is to educate, motivate, and get people to participate. So, Steve, maybe if you can give us an overview of your journey this far. Like, how did you get in the political world, and tell us what you're up to at this point. So, jump right in.
Yeah, thanks very much, David. I appreciate it. And it's great to be here. First of all, thank you for inviting me. So I started being interested in politics in college. So I was a journalism and English major, and as such, got very involved in what was happening in presidential politics, in local politics. Learned the ropes at some newspapers in central Massachusetts, and ended up working in Quincy for the Patriot Ledger newspaper. So learned a lot about how politics works, and then went off to be a businessman for a number of decades. I worked at technology companies, most recently for Amazon Web Services, and I retired a couple of years ago. And my plan when I retired was that I wanted to immediately start working for the Trump campaign. So it took a little bit of time, but eventually started working for the Trump campaign. It was a great experience. And I also got involved in my local city politics in the city of Attleboro. And I think that is tremendously important working at the local grassroots level. Very proud of the work that we're doing here. And that's where we are today.
Great. So that's a great story. Just kind of getting interested and jumping in and looking for different opportunities to participate. And I think, that's where we are now in Massachusetts. There's a lot of people that are excited after the Trump campaign. We've seen the huge move, 8.8% to the right. On the election in 2024. So there's a lot of people looking to get involved. So what are you up to now? Currently the election's over, thank goodness, and Massachusetts is in the news quite a bit. And so what's kind of the game plan for 2025 for you?
Well, I would say that the a lot of people are very interested in the 2026 statewide races, gubernatorial race, et cetera. But I'm very focused on local races because 2025 are local elections. And because Attleboro is a city, our election is in November. So we have quite a while for people to build up campaigns and to get themselves elected. So right now I'm working with some new candidates, helping them learn the ropes. There are 24 positions available in Attleboro. Our goal was to have somebody for every single one of those positions. We're not there yet, but we do have a number of brand new candidates, and I want to focus a lot of effort on helping them because people who are just dipping their toe in the water for the first time, need some guidance and some advice. And so that's been my primary focus. Secondarily, has been working in the arena of election integrity. And I'm involved with two national groups, Cause of America and United Sovereign Americans, as well as the Mass GOP. So I'm not a voting member of the Mass GOP. I'm not on the state committee, but I volunteered to work on their election integrity committee, and help them make some progress in terms of a few initiatives. So that's what I'm up to at the moment.
Terrific. So, just to broaden that out a little bit, so for Attleboro, with all of those opportunities, I guess the first question, are they all elected positions? Are some of them volunteer, committee positions as well?
Now, these are all elected positions, the 24 that I'm talking about. So it is, Attleboro has 6 wards, 12 precincts, and to get elected to like a ward city councilor or a ward school committee, 500 votes will get you elected. And but we have people who have never run before and need a little bit of hand holding and a push start.
Right. Okay, great. So some of these different positions, are they at this, is there a select board or is it a city council, like finance, economic development, education, are some of those positions in the mix as well?
Uh, those those non-elected positions are always available. There are always a few openings on boards like the planning board, um, or some other voluntary positions. So I'm not so much interested in those, although we are proponents for people helping in those positions. So Attleboro has a mayor city council form of government. And so there's the mayor, there's the city clerk, there's a tax collector, there's treasurer, et cetera. So those are citywide positions. And then there are 5 council at large positions. They run citywide. And then there are 6 ward councilors, and those just run within their ward. The same structure is on the school committee. So they have a number of citywide at-large positions, and then one person for each of the wards.
Nice. So what is your recruiting strategy? And, again, we're trying to scale this
Yeah.
concept throughout the Commonwealth. So how do you go about identifying individuals and getting them to jump in the pool, so to speak?
Yeah, and that's we start early, first of all,
Yeah.
and we use the power of the Republican City Committee to find out who's out there, who might be interested in running. Our city committee kind of faded away during COVID, and I was fortunate enough to be able to jump in and get that restarted a couple of years ago. And since we've restarted, we've grown to between 40 and 50 members, which is pretty big for a town committee or a city committee. And we're using the power of crowdsourcing,
Nice.
David, and it is to get everybody to who's everybody who might be interested in at least trying out and seeing what it's like to run for office. So we've been successful, and we've gotten a number of new candidates, people who've never run before, and we've got a number of people who are just doing it for the second time. So kind of in the same boat.
That's awesome. That's great. So that's something that can be again scaled, almost looking for who's the most upset about different issues and you leverage that emotion to get them to run and at least participate in some way. So that's awesome.
Exactly. And these are nonpartisan elections in the city for local offices. So when we're talking about working with Republicans, I'm really looking for conservative-minded people. And the vast majority of voters, registered voters in the city, just like all of Massachusetts, are unaffiliated.
Right.
So you're looking for people who might be unaffiliated but vote Republican most of the time or vote conservative. I use interchangeably the terms conservative and Republican when I'm talking to the folks that we're trying to reach.
Right, right. Yeah, 64% across the state. So, we have to tap into that. So that brings us to the other areas that you're working in terms of election integrity. You mentioned a couple of organizations, United Sovereign Americans and Cause of America. Maybe you can expand on those two. And even before that, just in your opinion, how big an issue is it in Massachusetts in terms of election integrity, just in general?
Yeah, it's big, it's messy, it's unfortunate. There's a lot of work to do. So, we have, if you think in terms of what types of issues you're talking about, we're talking about people who are voting who shouldn't be, people who are registered or on the rolls of being registered who shouldn't be, and things like voter ID, very important for a lot of people, and other problems that we are not really getting into right now, such as issues involving um, tabulators. So the machines that count the vote, what's really going on inside those machines? That's more of a national issue than it is a statewide issue right now. But one of my main focuses is in trying to clean up the voter rolls, which are just a complete mess. And if you think about what's been divulged lately regarding Doge and the Social Security Administration finding all these people who apparently are 130 years old, according to the records. We have that same problem with voters in Massachusetts, where the records just aren't clean. And there's no excuse for it, in my opinion, given the state of technology these days and the ability to keep track of things like that, keep people who have moved out of state off the voter rolls, keep people who have passed away off the voter rolls. We have all those issues here, and the state is not really motivated to do anything about it.
Right. So those two organizations, are they national organizations or local? And maybe a little bit about
Yeah,
those.
both United Sovereign Americans and Cause of America are national organizations that have state chapters in Massachusetts, very active state chapters. So what we're able to do is to do analysis on some of these issues with the benefit of seeing what's going on in other states in the country and getting help from the people who have done it before elsewhere and be able to apply those learnings to Massachusetts and then have all of our smart folks in Massachusetts get together, look at the information and provide that information to the state. So if you take Sovereign Americans, for example, um, did a deep analysis on the 2022 elections and provided all of that data to the Secretary of the Commonwealth and said, look, we've got some problems here. We've got some recommendations on how to fix those problems. We're asking you to do something about it. Never even got a response. So the statewide group, very active, not giving up, taking another run at it. And there's a lot of overlap with the group called Cause of America, which is sponsored by Mike Lindell, run by him at the top, the My Pillow guy. And he has a huge network of people across the country who are doing the same sorts of things. And it's been very shocking to me to see the nature or the state of elections across the country and see the same patterns happening state by state by state. Some worse, some terrible, like you would see in Arizona, for example, or Colorado, and some that are not so bad. And it filters all the way down to the local level. as well. So you've got in Massachusetts, most of the country, elections are run by counties. So the counties are large. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of infrastructure. But in Massachusetts, there's no real county involvement in elections. It's all 351 cities and towns, and they all do it a little bit differently. Some have more resources than others, and a lot of this comes down to the poor town clerks who are just trying to get through the day and handle all the business of the town, and then have to try to keep these voter rolls as accurate as possible. I'm not saying it can't be done, but it's a statewide database that's full of errors, and no one's really getting ahead of it. So I think that if you go down to the local level, they say we just can't keep up with all of this, and that's got some legitimacy. But if you think about your bank account or a credit card company, right? I've got a really good credit card company, and I get emails from them all the time. If I buy two things, I once was at a golf driving range with my daughter. We've got a bucket of balls for $15. We hit them. I went and got another bucket of balls. We hit those. And before I got into my car, I got an email from the credit card company saying, "Hey, we think you might have been charged twice for the same thing. Do you want to check this out?" And it's like, if they can do that, if that's the state of the art for a credit card company, why can't we be sending every city and town clerk a list of apparent errors in their community that need to be addressed within the next 72 hours? You've got somebody listed twice. And for example, when we look at duplicate voter ID numbers, so everybody has a voter ID number, supposed to be unique, and we've got like 9,000 duplicates in the state. We've got probably 10,000 people who have died, who are still registered to vote. Now, does it mean that somebody's casting ballots in their name and cheating? Not necessarily. It's probably like 100 people who voted um, based on after dying, which is interesting. But um, but it opens the door to questions like with the Social Security Administration. They say, those people who are 130 years old aren't getting checks and cashing them. Yeah, but why are they still on the list? How much effort would it take to clean that up and conform with federal law that requires voter lists to be accurate and certification of elections to be accurate?
So, what role would a Republican registrar in a local town, city or town play in this? I know it's been a challenge to recruit Republican registrars, and sometimes they show up, and that's great, and we appreciate every one of them that's out there. But assuming you have one or two in a given city or town that are engaged, competent, committed, and so forth, what can they be doing at a local level?
Well, first of all, they can make it a priority. So every city and town is supposed to have an equal number of Democrats and Republicans as registrars. So in the city of Attleboro, we have an election commission. It's a little bit different in a city. And we have two Republicans and two Democrats. And I'm fortunate to be able to say that in Attleboro, they do a pretty good job. And they also have an elections office. In a lot of the towns, they will have, once again, supposed to be two Republicans and two Democrats, but one of those people, it has to be the town clerk. So if the town clerk is unenrolled or is a Democrat, sometimes it throws off the balance a little bit. And sometimes there just aren't enough people who want to serve in those positions. So what the Republicans, well, what both parties should be doing is looking at the state of the voter rolls and making sure they're as clean as they can possibly be. A lot of these errors, um, and these defects could be easily fixed. And in some cases, I think the towns just don't have the manpower to be able to deal with it, and they just put it on the back burner. I'll give you an example. One of the patterns we see all the time is in voter registration dates. So for every person on the voter roll, you have your proper name, your address, you have a voter ID number, you have a date of birth, and you have a registration date. Well, we've got some communities where the registration dates, the most frequent registration date is January 1, 1900. Um, Probably incorrect, but somebody put that in as a placeholder at one point, and nobody ever looked, nobody ever checked, no harm, no foul, and they just ended up with 5,000 people in their community that have that single registration date. And you see that happening town by town by town. Each one has their own special secret date that they use. In my community, it's 11/11/1996. There are over 5,000 people with that registration date, where normal distribution for any date is probably 300, 400 people with the same registration date, not 5,000. So, does that mean people are committing fraud because of that? No, but it's a defect. And federal law says there are not to be any defects in the voter rolls.
So, as a data analyst now for the Mass GOP, I mean, obviously you have a great handle on this down at the granular level. So, you do all the research. Do you kind of forward that information to the Mass GOP and they work with it? So, how does that flow? Um,
Right. So we look at the statewide data. So we get a list from this. Mass GOP gets a list from the state of all the registered voters and the results of an election, everyone who voted. And we'll start digging into that. And being a data nerd, I sit in front of the database and crunch the numbers and try to figure out, are we seeing any problems? Now, interestingly, in Massachusetts, there's a lawsuit right now by one of the election integrity groups because Massachusetts won't share their voter registration information with just a normal citizen. They say that that is not public record. Um, they do share it periodically with Mass GOP, maybe twice a year, but it should be available. Federal law says it should be available to any citizen for inspection. And the state says, make me. So there's a lawsuit been filed. The same type of lawsuit has been filed recently in a number of other states. It was every time it is adjudicated, the plaintiffs win. So we think that lawsuit is going to be won in Massachusetts, and the voter registration information will be made available, but it hasn't happened yet. So we dig into that and we see what we find. Common example, so people can understand what we're talking about, is people move out of the state, and we get very good data from the post office. So when people move out of the state, they don't call City Hall and say, "Hey, I'm moving, take me off the voter roll." Nobody thinks about that. So they move, but USPS will send out, or they even have a service that they will provide to run the local voter list against their people who have moved list, and we get tens of thousands of people who have moved out of the state who still have active voter registrations in Massachusetts and still vote in Massachusetts. Who knows what's happening? Is it really them? Are they still voting, or is it somebody else? We don't know. And in fact, you'll hear from a lot of people. You'll get firsthand anecdotal evidence of people like me whose children have grown up, moved out of the house. I have a son who moved to Rhode Island, and for 6 years was still on the voter list, even though every year I would do the city census and say, nope, this kid has moved out of the house, he lives out of state, please take him off the list. And he finally was taken off the list this year in 2025 after 6 years of trying to get him off. Um, and it's just because I think that they don't want to make an error and take somebody off the list who belongs on. So they actually try to track these people down and get them to send back a signed affidavit saying, yes, I actually did move. Please take me off the list. And probably 1% of people will actually respond.
So yeah, there's a lot of issues. So it's nice to see, though, just in general, that circular process. You're doing the data dive, deep dive, understanding what's going on at the granular level, feeding
Yeah.
it up to the Mass GOP as well as these other organizations. So that's good, and that hopefully will motivate other people that are out there to become a registrar or at least get involved in this important issue. So that's awesome. So I want to switch gears just a little tiny bit. It's all connected, of course, but the RTC world, the RCC world and RTC world. So just rough numbers. 351 cities and towns, approximately 160 or so, give or take, RTCs out there, about 45%, give or take. If you do a SWOT analysis, right, our old friend, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, to the GOP or to Massachusetts in general, I mean, you look at it as a negative, right, only 45%, but I look at it as a huge opportunity to build that number. So at 160 roughly, I think by the end of the year we should be at 200, 250. I'm just throwing it into the universe and see what happens, right? But it's an opportunity, I think, because it's not an elected position. So you don't have to go through, the election and Facebook attacks and everything else. You can just find, hopefully, individuals that want to be a chair, a treasurer, secretary, and then you kind of have it, right? And you just build it from scratch. So, how do you see sort of that opportunity statewide first?
Yeah, well, let me correct you on one thing. It actually is an elected position.
Okay.
So,
Right, that's right.
there, right. And so my name was on the ballot on the presidential primary. I was proud to be on the same ballot as Donald J. Trump.
Nice.
And we had our team elected. So everybody on the Republican City Committee was elected, and they'll have another election in 4 years. It's every 4 years. So in the meantime, we are able to add people to the committee, and that's how we grow. We probably get 1 to 3 people a month added to the committee, which is a pretty good growth pattern. And we are advocating across the state um, to get more people involved in the already established RTCs, but also to help others get started or restarted. A lot of people faded away during the COVID period. My neighbor town, North Attleboro, just restarted their RTC, and that's great to see because they've always been very active. A lot of good people there. And so we're trying to do that, neighbors helping neighbors, and with the red mini wave that's occurring in Massachusetts, there's no better time than now to be reaching out to people who are unenrolled or maybe even disaffected Democrats who look at the lay of the land and they say, you know what, I really seem to align more with those Republican folks. So let me just get involved there. And I can tell you at our meetings, David, we have monthly meetings, and we have a lot of guests come and go and check things out. And one of the comments I get all the time are, hey, this is really common sense stuff that you're talking about. It's that, you're not a bunch of radicals. That's really interesting. And guess what? All these people are really nice. It's a very welcoming crowd and people who just want to do something good for the community. So we've got to persuade those people that they're not signing up um, to be a radical or join a radical organization. it's just neighbors helping neighbors and making the community better.
Right. Awesome. So, I mean, it really, if it's done right and correctly the way you're doing it, it can influence policy at the local level, whether it's, again, the volunteer positions, as we talked about, or those elected positions as well. So, I mean, it should be kind of a nice balance between civic activities, charitable events, and,
Exactly.
individuals at the local level, just being together and having fun and contributing to the community, but also hopefully getting people elected and influencing policy. So I guess the question too is, whose ultimate responsibility is it to grow new RTCs? And again, I'm still learning the system, but would it be state committee men and women who have a district, or is it also from the ground up? You have just individuals that are maybe have heard about an RTC and want to get involved. Like, what's the best way or the right way, I guess, to grow those numbers?
Well, ultimately, it's the responsibility of Mass GOP
Yep.
to get these committees started, to keep them fed and healthy. And they're actually doing a much better job these days than they have in the past, based on my experience. And we also have some groups, some political action committees. So there's one that I was at a meeting recently out of Norfolk, Massachusetts, where they have a political action committee, the Republican PAC in Norfolk, which covers 28 communities. So all of the RTCs of those 28 communities, if the RTCs exist, are invited to attend, and they pool their resources, they pool their brain power and make good things happen, help other communities where maybe they don't have an RTC yet. And just last night, interestingly, my state committee woman, Julie Hall, had a meeting with all of the RTC chairs in her district, just to help us get together and know each other a little bit better, help each other out. Even very simple things. One of the members didn't have a current charter for his RTC, so I sent him a copy of my charter and also the template that Mass GOP provides. Little things like that to be able to help each other out. And I offer to help them with database work if they just need some rudimentary analysis of the people in their communities. So we have a lot of dimensions of people helping people within the Republican group, and it's been well received.
That's great. That's great to hear. And that's one of the big takeaways from the Trump campaign. Just so many great people out there, just nice people that want to help, and sometimes they don't know how to help. I mean, we did a million standouts and they were great. I only wish I did more because I just met so many great people. So this type of activity is phenomenal because the people are out there. That's for sure. So we just have a few minutes left, Steve. Couple things to bring together. So there's an old saying on Wall Street: "Don't fight the tape," right? And that means a security's going in a certain direction, let it go. So the tape in this case is Massachusetts is getting a lot of play nationally. As a matter of fact, this morning on Fox News, I saw Sheriff Hodgson as well as Amy Cannavale, the chair of the Mass GOP. And there's a lot of momentum, I guess you could say, about what's happening in Massachusetts with regard to immigration and a lot of other issues. So I guess my question to you would be like, how do we leverage that? The wind is with us, or whatever cliche you want to use. How do we take advantage of that and move everything toward the elections? We have some municipal elections here in April, May. In your area, as you mentioned, it's the fall, and then the larger elections in 2026. So, how do we take advantage of what's happening?
Well, so the immigration issue is one of those, what people like to call now an 80-20 issue, where 80% of the people agree that there needs to be some better control over, who's in our state or who's in our country. And it's really awful news coming out of the city of Boston in terms of people committing crimes who happen to be in the country illegally. And we've also got issues all the time with people uh, who are able to get a driver's license in Massachusetts, not allowed to vote yet, like they're trying to do in New York, thankfully. But when we're examining the voter data, that's one area that's a black hole for us. We have no place to look to see who might be uh, a non-citizen who's voting. There's no repository. You can get death records and see people who have died. You can get the post office records to see people who have moved. There's no place you can go to see who might not be a citizen who's voting in your community. So I think the wind of change has is upon us now, and people are seeing that there are, if we're paying $1.5 billion in Massachusetts to support illegal immigrants. That's just not sustainable. And if you look at places like California and the trouble that they're in right now, they're going bankrupt in terms of healthcare because they've just overextended themselves. They've promised the world and they've spent way too much money. Um, and there's just got to be a change. So, although I think in New England certainly people are compassionate, and we're all children of immigrants, pretty much. I'm a second generation American in my family, so we can relate to that. But at the same time, just look at the numbers and you say this is not a good policy that we've been following, and something's got to change. I think you'll see some changes in the mayor of Boston. I think probably will be replaced, and I'm hoping that the governor is going to be replaced as well.
Nice. So, a couple different things, and we're going to just wrap up. First of all, thank you so much for taking the time to do this and provide your expertise to the larger mass MAGA community. Second, it was phenomenal working with you in the Trump campaign. We had a lot of fun, a lot of calls, a lot of Zoom calls and meetings, and it was just a great experience. So, I like to wrap up these different interviews with I guess you could say homework, right? Former professor. So if you were to, for the folks listening, what would you assign them in terms of a simple homework assignment that they can do to get involved in really any way?
Well, uh, being a conservative Republican, the things that I'm focused on all the time are lower taxes, less government, and more local control. So when you think about more local control, it's getting involved and helping people get elected who are going to support things like less government and lower taxes. Those things are just out of control right now. So it's a matter of reaching out, talking to your neighbors, maybe getting involved in the Republican town committee or city committee. But looking at the being educated in terms of what's going on in your community and getting involved at a local level. The grassroots level is so important, and we need more people who are going to do the right thing morally and help their communities get out of trouble and stay out of trouble and to prosper. A rising tide lifts all boats, doesn't it?
Terrific.
So that's the homework that I would give people is to be educated and get involved.
Awesome. Steve Semple, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to chat. It was a great interview. You added a lot of value, and we're going to keep in touch. Thanks for,
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity, and we'll see you soon.
okay, bye-bye. Thanks very much, Steve, for that great interview and great background you provided to the Mass MAGA community. If you'd like to be involved in the Mass MAGA community and help it grow, there's a few different things we can do. One is you can submit any RTC or RCC information right on the website, massmaga.com, or info@massmaga.com. You could submit any websites, Facebook groups, or other social media that pertain to conservative causes. Last but not least, you can send any candidate information directly on the website. If you're running for any local or regional or statewide offices, you could send your name, position, date of election, contact information, etc. And then lastly, you can follow on X. It's Mass MAGA GOP, and that's an X account. Thank you so much for listening and have a great day. And let's make Massachusetts great again.